Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here and welcome to Gold Goes to the Movies. For those regular viewers, I do apologise. It's been a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, work and life got in the way. It did. However, as one benefit of work, I had to head off across the world to do some work, and around doing that work on the flights, they were long haul flights, I managed to kind of catch up on a fair few movies that I'd missed over recent months in the cinema anyway. So all's well that ends well. As you might be able to tell, two Muppets today. To keep with the movie theme, I was already running out of movie toys to pop on the sofa behind me, and suddenly remembered that my oldest daughter had a Kermit toy. So technically movie related. T-shirt is a Star Wars one today, and I've got 9 spoiler-free movie reviews for you today. A collection of movies. I went to the cinema to see The Fall Guy. Like I say, a couple of long-haul flights, so I caught up on some smaller movies like Reliance, Dream Scenario, 2 very different movies. Blockbusters, Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, Blue Beetle, Meg 2, The Trench. On TV, I'm streaming on Amazon. I saw The Idea of You and The Voyeurs, and caught up with a movie that I absolutely should never have missed at the time, Parasite, on Netflix. So we've got a whole bunch of very different films there to talk about. You can tell just from that list, they're just all over the shop. Let's start with The Fall Guy, as that is the most recent of the bunch. Well, technically from a cinema perspective. Straight off the bat, I'm going to say I really enjoyed it. I'm so disappointed it hasn't done particularly well at the box office. And I have seen varying reactions to it. On the whole, the critics seem to have quite liked it, and user reviews out there seem to be okay. But my goodness, you look on social media, there are some very... I know you should never really use social media as your guide, but my goodness, there are some varying reactions out there. I've seen people saying that they walked out of the cinema and stuff like that. I really enjoyed it. I don't know whether I'm just seeing something completely different, but went with my wife. Had just a really great night at the cinema. It was that kind of movie. It was like a bit of a throwback. Go to the cinema and just enjoy yourself. We both loved it. It's great action, kind of snappy dialogue between the two leads. You know, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are just so watchable, aren't they? Just ridiculously watchable. It's like an homage to stunt men and women across movies. It's funny. David Leitch, the director, he knows how to handle action. He's done Bullet Train. He's done Deadpool 2, Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw. You may have differing degrees of affection for that compared to those other 2 films. He was also involved in the John Wick franchise as a producer, and I think I'm pretty sure actually he was a stunt coordinator himself back in the day on many films. And this is a bit of a love letter to his craft. So if you're not aware what it is, I actually used to watch as a kid the TV show with Lee Majors, which that absolutely dates and ages me very quickly, but I'd like to think it was reruns rather than the original showings of this show. But yeah, so I remember the theme tune and all that sort of stuff. And I would say if you, like me, used to watch those, stick around to the end credits. That's all I'd say. But the story itself in this one, if you're not aware, it's about a stunt man who's kind of down on his luck, out of the business, brought back into the job to help his ex-girlfriend in her first directorial gig, when the big movie star, who's played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who he always used to double for, goes missing. And so Ryan Gosling's character has to go and investigate. It's set in Sydney, which just looks amazing, the whole lighting they use for it. I just found it fun. You know, is it the perfect movie? Of course not. Could have spent a bit more time in different areas of the movie? Of course. But I really enjoyed it. I just had a great time. I came out of the cinema with a couple of hours of really enjoying myself. And I think that's kind of what you go to the cinema to do. So yeah, I do find it really kind of sad that it's kind of suffered from this little lull at the cinema and the box office that we're seeing. Furiosa seems to be getting that at the moment, which I'm watching this week. That's had great reviews, but it's underperforming at the box office as well. And it's underperformed so much at the box office, The Fall Guy, that apparently it's triggered some kind of clause where it goes then into streaming quite quickly. I think it's already available in America. We haven't got it in the UK yet, maybe because we got it a bit later at the cinema, or maybe it's because of rights, I don't know. But if you can see it on the cinema, I think you should. It looks great on the big screen. Like I say, it's really rich colours. The stunts are fantastic. Some really kind of funny back and forth dialogue. And yeah, I think it's good fun. I really did enjoy it. It's got a few good supporting casts in it. Hannah Waddingham, who you may know from Ted Lasso or Game of Thrones, way before that. She's got a good kind of role in this. It's got different sides to it. And I really like Winston Duke of Black Panther fame. I really liked his part in that. He kind of riffed with Ryan Gosling really well. I like their dynamic together. It's I just think it's really sad that it didn't hit the mark at the box office, because it could have kind of gone on and had its own. It could have had sequels and things like that. I'm intrigued to see how it works on streaming. I think my theory is it's going to do really well. I think it's going to be one of those that maybe has this second life on streaming and loads of people watch it. I think it will be a perfect Saturday night film. You know, you get a takeaway, get a pizza, whatever it is you get on your Saturday night, sit in front of it on the biggest screen you have in your house, and I think people will enjoy it. I certainly did. So yeah, that was my kind of big cinema movie of the week. I know it's a couple of weeks old now because I did watch it just before I headed off on my travels. But if you've got the chance to go to cinema, really go and watch it. And if you can watch it on streaming, do let me know what you think in the comments about it, because I do feel it's got a rough ride. And yeah, there you go. The Fall Guy. Moving on to something very, very different. Dream scenario. So 2023 film, starring Nicolas Cage. The premise for this is brilliant. I love the concept of it. So Nicolas Cage plays this very dull professor type, looking for credit for his work. One day he just goes into college and finds people are starting to look at him a bit funny, and then some other people start to look at him a bit funny. And then he does an interview with a local reporter, and more people start to kind of realise that he's popping up in their dreams. Just there in the background, simply observing. And then when this reporter's story kind of breaks, it gets bigger and bigger, suddenly they realise thousands of people are seeing this professor in their dreams. He's just there. And they don't know him, they hadn't seen him previously. And then, without giving much away, his presence in their dreams turns into a slightly different kind of way. And everyone, the world, he's become this kind of celebrity. People start to turn against him. And I really enjoyed it. Again, this is another one in a very different vein I enjoyed. It's a take on, I guess, on celebrity culture in today's world, as well as cancel culture. Just the theory of kind of the dreams as well, and what maybe could be done with them in the future. You know, could you place advertising in people's dreams? And I thought it was really fascinating kind of topic. It's directed by the Norwegian director Christopher Borgli, who he did Sick of Myself, which was nominated across loads of film festivals a couple of years back, including Cannes. And I should stress that this movie, Dream Scenario, it's not going to be for everyone. For instance, my youngest daughter thought it was absolutely terrible. She really didn't like it at all. Whereas I don't know, it's a bit of an out there film. The humour is very dark in it. It's not a kind of a rollicking, fast-paced kind of. We're not talking a Fall Guy here. We are talking very much one of Nicolas Cage's slightly stranger films. But I really liked it. I liked the way it was put together. I liked the way you very much get inserted into this story, and you feel his kind of frustrations. And Nicolas Cage is terrific. I thought he was really good. I think quite a few of the reviews of this film have praised his performance, because I feel he got the balance absolutely perfectly right between portraying a man who is kind of quite dull and his life is kind of very unassuming, yet suddenly he has this fame to deal with, and then also frustration at things that are really beyond his control. And I think he manages all of that really well. We know Nicolas Cage, yes, he can kind of ham it up sometimes, but we also know he can be a very good actor. And I think he brings a lot of this to this story as well, and this performance. His wife's very good. She's played by Julianne Nicholson as well. She's one of those faces that you'll have seen around on TV. I remembered her personally from Boardwalk Empire. You might have seen her in Mayor of Easttown, Law and Order, Ally McBeal. Honestly, she's just been in so much, such a long career. She was in I, Tonya recently in terms of movies, and Weird, the Al Yankovic story. And she's very good in this story and this performance of how she deals with the fallout around her husband, trying to kind of stick with him, but also a lot of what's happening around him also kind of rubs off on her and makes her kind of feelings change in different ways. And it's it's good. His whole family are good. The supporting cast has got Tim Meadows, who's a very funny actor you'll see pop up in every TV show imaginable as well. He does a lot of voiceover work. 2 Grown-Ups movies, Mean Girls. You'll know him, honestly. He's one of these actors, you'll see him. Michael Cera turns up as well in a good little role that was very effective. And yeah, I found it a really interesting movie. It's not one you're probably going to want to watch twice, but it is a fascinating concept and it's very well acted. Next one, another 2023 movie, which is another kind of indie movie, a smaller movie, is Self-Reliance, which is the directorial debut of Jake Johnson. If you're not aware who Jake Johnson is, you might know him as Nick Miller in New Girl, in which, personally, I thought he was brilliant. I loved him in that film. That TV show. He is so good in that. His career as an actor is quite fascinating. He kind of pops up in the odd big budget movie like Jurassic World, the Tom Cruise attempt at doing The Mummy, Tag, Let's Be Cops. They were kind of bigger cinema releases. He also does a lot of voice work as well, actually. Spider-Verse animated movies, he's in those. But mostly, I would say, a lot of his career has also been spent doing these little indie flicks like Win It All, Ride the Eagle, Safety Not Guaranteed. They're all really good little kind of indie films. And this is kind of his attempt to, I guess, helm his own one. And it's an interesting story. It's, again, a good little kind of concept movie. He plays Tommy, who's a guy that's like stuck in his rut in life. He's split up with his girlfriend, and he's given the chance by Andy Samberg, quite literally Andy Samberg, playing himself or a version of himself, to take part in this reality show where people will hunt him down. But they can only, and it's for 30 days, I think it is, but they can only attempt to kill him if he's away from touching distance from another human being. Which sounds really easy to get around, but it's not. And it kind of goes into all of the ideas of why that is. And if he survives the 30 days, he gets $1 million. So it's this kind of another, again, little concept movie. And it's, you know, Anna Kendrick pops up in a very nice little supporting role. Tommy's family in this are an amusing bunch. And the wonderfully named Biff Whiff. He is terrific as this homeless guy. That Tommy gets to help him out with this whole kind of task, so he has someone around him a lot, but it doesn't quite always work like this. But this is very much a Jake Johnson vehicle. Look, his movie roles may not bring out the greatest diversity in him. He does kind of play a similar character. It's kind of almost how you imagine him to be, but it doesn't mean he's any less of an actor, but he does play this kind of type in a lot of his films. But he's just very watchable, very funny. He's the everyman you kind of root for in these situations or films. It's a very short movie. It's only 1 hour and 25 minutes. But like I say, a fun little concept and a pleasant way to spend your time. Which wasn't really the case for my next film, which is Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom. I liked Aquaman. I like the original. I really like Jason Momoa. I think he's a really kind of good movie star, very watchable, can be very funny, can act well, good, does action. I was so disappointed by the sequel, which is also directed by James Wan. It's just a bit of a big, expensive mess, and it's, I guess, a mess born of what was going on around it. You had the whole Amber Heard situation, and her character's screen time is accordingly slashed. It's slashed to pieces, and so much so that it feels weird in terms of the plot. This is a story, I guess, about there's elements of Aquaman being a dad now, and the mother of the child is very much in and out of them, and it just it doesn't really work. I guess it also is a kind of a product of being part of that whole crossover period when DC Studios was getting reborn, as it were, had a major overhaul. James Gunn and Peter Safran taking charge as the new bosses of the studios, and all the original Justice League crew were being turfed out the door. And Jason Momoa was very much the last man standing, because this big movie, which is obviously the last one, was very successful, was in production already. Most of the original cast are back. You've got Patrick Wilson, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Nicole Kidman, Tamira Morrison, Dolph Lundgren, Randall Park, who continues to somehow straddle both DC and the Marvel universes. But it's just a mess. It's one of those, when you get a sequel sometimes, they always like bigger, bolder, better. And it's like, no, the better bit isn't always that case when you just get bigger and mash everything together. The plot is just utterly forgettable. Honestly, I'm struggling even now to remember all the strands of it. Essentially, it's Black Manta coming back with more power. And Aquaman has to get his imprisoned brother back to help him. But Aquaman is now a dad. And that's a really underused little plot device. I think that could have been so much more interesting. But it's, again, and I presume because of the Amber Heard situation, tucked away to the side. Yeah, it's probably the only bits of fun that really come from it are the interplay between Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson as the brothers that don't kind of fit. That's quite cool. There's some little moments between them, and some of the action scenes are okay, but it's just it's so which is such a shame after such a really good first one. And the first one was kind of, it could have been really cheesy. It's Aquaman, you know, the guy talks to fish, or fishes. It could have been really, really cheesy, but Momoa was so good in the first one. I think we kind of, all of that just fell away. It was just a good, fun, popcorn cinema movie. This one just kind of goes back to being that cheesy. It feels very forced, some of it. CGI'd up to the eyeballs and not the greatest CGI. Momoa is still its redeeming feature. Jason Momoa is very watchable amidst all of this mess. But it's just not the way his character should have gone out. We presume that's that now. I think it is for Aquaman. That seems to be the case with the new slate that they're all bringing in. And yeah, it's just a shame that it goes out that way. But I'm sure Jason Momoa will be back. Yeah, from one blockbuster to another, which I actually found more fun. And this was another superhero one, and that's Blue Beetle. It was another DC one. Again, I think it was kind of in that slight crossover period when the new kind of Gunn and Safran were coming in. This one is directed by the Puerto Rican director Angel Manuel Soto. It's done well on streaming, apparently, but again, not so well at the box office, which seems to be a theme for movies nowadays. It was part of that whole superhero fatigue thing that we had a few months back. It's a really difficult one. I can understand where the fatigue would come from this movie, because it's got a lot that you'll have seen before in Marvel. I mean, for example, it's a cross between, I guess, Iron Man, Venom as well. The story and it's going to sound very cheesy this, but an alien scarab chooses a young university graduate as its host and gives him powers and essentially the suit of armour. But I know you're probably thinking, oh, great, yeah, I'm really going to watch that. But I always said there's something different about the way this one's presented and it's handled. A little bit like Ms. Marvel took superhero life into a kind of a Pakistani-American family, and I really loved that element to it. Just took it into, you know, it wasn't your bog standard, here's this classic kind of thing you're being served up all the time in these films and TV shows. It took it in a different direction with a different background, a different culture, and I love that. And Blue Beetle, to be fair to it, takes it into the Latino culture. It's just got that little, it gives it something more to it. Zola Maradena, I'm sorry, you know what I'm like if you've watched these before, the pronunciation of names. The lead actor from Cobra Kai, it's really the best way to say it. He's very good in the lead role of this. Everything kind of goes around now. He's got this innocence to his character, which is excellent. And the supporting cast that flesh out his family are very good as well, especially Nana Reyes, who's played by Adriana Barraza. His uncle Rudy is played by the very famous George Lopez, who's been around forever. And I think this family element to this story, again, which was missing from Aquaman, kind of really grounds this story. And it provides some real kind of hurt and pain and heart as well in some big kind of action moments. It's got a little bit more to it. So give it a go. I would say for me, if you're going to pick between Aquaman 2 and Blue Beetle, pick Blue Beetle for me. It's got baddies with Susan Sarandon chewing up the scenery in a role. Harvey Guillen from What We Do in the Shadows. He's kind of the scientist with a bit of a conscience. And then you've got Raoul Max Trujillo as a main henchman. Again, a little bit of a different henchman. It's not perfect and it's definitely not original. But it's just got a nice charm about it. I did enjoy it. I think maybe had it come out about 10 years ago, before all the flood of Marvel movies did, maybe it would have been kind of got a bit of a bigger reaction. It's a nice enough movie. Again, very unoriginal in a lot of what it does, but I love the way it's grounded in Latino culture, and it gives it a real heart to it. It's give that one a go. If you see it on streaming, again, another Saturday night movie for me, that one. The third of the blockbuster hat trick, Meg to the Trench. Bit like Aquaman Lost Kingdom, not a patch on its predecessor. I enjoyed Meg, or The Meg. It was camp, silly fun. It had, Jason Statham in kind of one-liner mode. And it kept things quite tight, the tension high. Yeah, this one, again, falls into that sequel trap of ramping everything up. The CGI, the silliness, the plot threads, there's too many of them, just like Aquaman 2. It's interestingly directed by an English indie filmmaker, Ben Wheatley, who has a CV. You look at it, it really does not scream huge giant sharks monster movie. It absolutely does not. It kind of adds little elements to this I'm not entirely sure it needed. Like, it gives Jason Statham more fighting to do than the first one, which kind of, for me, took it into his other films territory and away from, what he did with Meg, the Meg. It is the Meg, isn't it? My brain's going today. And it felt a bit forced to try and get that element into it. It's also got land creatures, monsters, which make it all a bit, I guess, Jurassic Parky. And I don't know how necessary that is. You've got water, you've got huge sharks. It is more than one shark. It is sharks in this one. It's not without its merits, though. I feel like I'm going to go really down on it. It's not awful. His interactions, Jason Statham, with his little crew are good fun, including the excellent New Zealand actor Cliff Curtis, who's been around. Another guy that's been around forever, all the way back to Once Were Warriors. He's terrific, and he's good fun in this as well. And I would say the ending's fun. It builds to a decent ending, and it does make it just about worth the wait. It's again not a patch on its predecessor, the original, which was just, sometimes this happens, doesn't it, when you get a fun camp kind of movie, in a way, big action flick, and you just don't take enough of what was good about it, and instead you up the other elements of it. But yeah, big sharks, monsters, Jason Statham. If you like all of that, you won't be disappointed, I guess. The two streaming movies I watched on Amazon. 2024's The Idea of You, which is based on the acclaimed book. It's a romantic comedy, albeit with a sex scene. It was a little bit more than I really anticipated or expected or wanted when watching the movie with my wife and oldest daughter. I mean, she might be in her mid-20s, my oldest daughter, but nobody want to watch that stuff with their kids. It's a very short scene, but I'm just saying this just to make sure, if you're going to watch this with anyone, you don't want to be watching a film that has a little scene. It's a couple of minutes long. It had me very awkwardly trying to skip it eventually, right as it was about to finish anyway, the scene, so it made no difference whatsoever. But just to give you a heads up and warning there. It's a nice film, though, on the whole. It is. It's a little bit deeper than your kind of normal romantic comedy, I would say. The central idea, if you haven't kind of not been aware of it, Anne Hathaway, 40-year-old mum, taking her daughter to Coachella and bumping into and falling in for, really, the 24-year-old lead singer of the biggest boy band on the planet. And it's a nice kind of fluffy romantic movie, maybe with a little bit more to it than them. It's directed by Michael Showalter, who kind of has a good kind of pedigree in movies with a bit of heart. It's got a decent soundtrack. It's got the kind of poppy type songs, if you like that sort of stuff. Anne Hathaway is very, very good. She kind of holds it all together. It's a lovely performance, showing the excitement, pain, fear, and everything of what a relationship brings, and especially one that's with this kind of age gap as well. Nicholas Galitzine plays the boy band star. I'd imagine this will probably be his boy band breakout performance. He started in the Netflix film Purple Hearts a couple of years ago. That did shoot up the charts on Netflix, did well, was watched by quite a few people. I feel like this one is probably going to take him onto that next little platform. And he and Anne Hathaway have got a good chemistry. It's got some interesting themes, in today's world. The examination of what happens to those who date these boy band types is really interesting. How the fans who are so obsessed deal with that, especially if they dare be an older person, and even more so, dare be an older lady. And what does it mean for the band? Is it going to, is it going to split them up? All this sort of stuff, and it kind of takes it on to. It's a take on social media, I guess, as well, and how people react. And it's a more than serviceable romantic movie. It's nice for like a date night movie. Just send your daughter out the room or son, whoever they may be, for about 3 to 4 minutes at one point. Otherwise, you'll be forced to stare at the ceiling, make awkward conversation, and try to make anything focused rather than what's on the screen. But it is, again, I should stress, it's just a very small moment, and it's not even like nudity or anything like that. It's just like, oh, okay kind of moment. And one movie you'll definitely not want to watch with your children, even if they're in their 50s or 60s, which would make you slightly older, is The Voyeurs. It's a 2021 movie written and directed by Michael Mohan. Stars Sydney Sweeney, who is just everywhere nowadays. I know her from White Lotus, first season. A lot of people have seen her in Euphoria, which I haven't seen. Set in Montreal, focuses on a young couple, which is Sweeney and Justice Smith, who was in Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and Dungeons and Dragons. Very good. It's got this very kind of surprising and notable voice, very deep voice as well. This couple move into a new apartment, and they start to become obsessed with their view across the road of this couple and everything they get up to. And I mean, everything they get up to as well. It definitely becomes a real obsession, and it's I don't know how to describe it. The idea for the movie came to Michael Mohan, who wrote and directed it, after visiting his friend's new place in Los Angeles. And when he looked out the window, he spotted a couple in their apartment across the street just walking around naked. So he thought he'd write this movie. And it's a movie that kind of falls into 3 parts for me. The first part is quite a big part. It's the first half of the movie, which is kind of like a raunchy version of Rear Window set in Montreal. And that for me was the kind of concept, was the Rear Window aspect. And I really like that idea of like seeing something and not being able to kind of affect it and being worried about what's happening or whatever. But it does have this kind of, I guess, raunchy element to it as well. There is a lot of nudity in this film, I should point out. I say a fair bit of nudity in this film, because it's kind of got that aspect to it. The second segment of the movie, I guess the third quarter, if you will, that's got a few moments where you're like, no, don't do that, no, where bad things happen. And then the finale, the fourth quarter, is a bit where you'll be going, okay, that's quite clever. And then it all kind of descends into silliness suddenly again. So yeah, it's an interesting film. I wouldn't say it was one of the best films I've ever seen in my life. The couple that they are watching are played by Ben Hardy, who UK people might know from EastEnders. He played Peter Beetle for about 10 years, very much an English thing there. There's also Roger Taylor in Bohemian Rhapsody. And the other half of that couple is Natasha Liu Bordizzo. I might have killed the pronunciation there. If you like your Star Wars shows, she most recently played Sabine Wren in Ahsoka, which she was very good in. So yeah, it is there's interesting moments in this movie, but probably not enough to really maintain its momentum. It's average. It's average. I'm sure. I don't know. I'm sure some people really like it. Some people might just watch it for the nudity. Maybe, I don't know. For me, like I say, it was the Rear Window aspect to it. I love that Hitchcock film, and it didn't really deliver in that kind of way. Yeah, not at all. But the first half built up quite nicely, and then, like I say, some clever bits toward the end, but other bits around that you're like, no, not why, just why, essentially. Final film of the bunch, Parasite. I loved Parasite so much, and I have no idea why I didn't watch it at the time. Came out in 2019. Technically, I think we got it in 2020 in the UK. My whole family, we all sat down as a family and watched it and really, really loved it. You know, I'm sure many people will be well aware of it now. It's a much celebrated Korean movie directed by Bong Joon-ho. Essentially, it's about a poor family who are really desperate for money, living in this basement flat, and they, one by one, start to infiltrate this rich family in various jobs. They manipulate them in order to better themselves before, of course, with anything like this, it all starts to unravel. It's just got this delicious dark humour about it. I loved it. The performances are spot on. Song Kang-ho as the father has just stole it for me. It's just so good. But everyone in it is perfect, honestly. It's funny, it's dark, it's chilling. Quite somber and sad at other times as well. I mean, what it did in the cinema is just ridiculous. It was made for just $11.4 million and made $262 million across the world. If you're not aware, at the Oscars, it won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best International Feature Film as well. Swept various film festivals too. If you haven't seen it, it's marvellous. Honestly, it's well worth it. I was one of those, I thought all the hype at the time, is it actually going to be that good? And it really is. It's a phenomenal film. It's absolutely fantastic. So there you go. That's the 9 movies. I wanted to try and squeeze. I could have gone on about a few of them for much longer, but I thought with 9 films, I've got to keep it as quick as I can. I know we're already at the 32-minute mark, but that's honestly, it could have been a lot longer. And hey, 2 Muppets for the price of 1. So yeah, I've now got this kind of period of time where I can start really getting back into films again and getting to the cinema. I want to catch up with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Furiosa I want to see, Challengers I'm hoping to still see before it heads out to the cinema. If I'd like to see as well as a bit of a family one too. So I won't leave the next video as long, I do promise you that. But hopefully you got lots of movie recommendations from this one. There's quite a few in there as well. Some blockbusters that they're okay, some that disappointed, a couple of streaming movies of differing quality as well, and The Fall Guy, which I really enjoyed. Probably out of all of these, Fall Guy and Parasite were the 2 for me. Again, very different movies for very different reasons, but I enjoyed them both immensely. So yeah, I will be back soon. Hopefully you've watch some of those, and if you've got very differing opinions or agree, let me know in the comments. I love the discussion that goes under these videos. It's fantastic, and I'm always dipping in and out of it and trying to reply to as many people as I can. So right, time to head off, go and watch some more movies. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.